Okay, so diving in today, we've got a pretty unique collection of stuff.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
It's from an artist you sent over, Carnage 1nOnly.
Carnage 1nOnly, yep.
And what really grabbed us as we were going through all of this, and there's a lot here, YouTube transcripts, kind of like these written reflections, is this, I don't know, like raw emotional honesty. It just hits you.
It really does. I mean, you see it right on the page, on the screen.
Yeah, and we're going to explore how Carnage 1nOnly uses music and like spoken word, not just to express like pain, which is a big part of it, but also to dig into these like relationships, right? The messy parts of relationships.
Yeah, and the complications.
Yeah, exactly. And also to grapple with some pretty, I think, deep inner conflicts that a lot of us probably face but don't always put out there.
Absolutely.
So for you listening, this could be a real point of connection if you've dealt with any of these things.
Yeah, very relatable. I mean, look, the sheer volume of what we've got here. We can really see how consistent these themes are, how they evolve over time.
Right.
And that's, I think, really powerful in and of itself.
Yeah.
You've given us these YouTube transcriptions. They're fascinating. It's almost like we're looking at unfiltered thoughts set to music, to rhythm.
Yeah, yeah.
Pieces like AMC War 2, Carnage Antibody Free Birth.
Well, Carnage's been there.
Yeah, been there, right. And then alongside those, we also have these more, I guess, like carefully crafted textual pieces like, Carnage 1nOnly, expressing pain, finding connection. You've got Carnage, food for thought, which is thought-provoking.
Right.
And then these excerpts from pasted text, which feel quite personal.
Yeah, almost like diary entries. I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit. And having all these different forms of expression, I think, gives us a really unique, a really broad understanding of how Carnage 1nOnly kind of processes and communicates these really difficult experiences.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just one way of getting it out there.
Right.
Okay, so our mission today, as we see it, is to really dig into all of this, pull out those core themes, the big insights, and help you listening understand not only the depth of emotion here, but also why this artist's, I don't know, their voice might resonate with you, might make you feel seen, make you feel connected.
Absolutely. I think that's key here, the connection.
Yeah, and we're going to look at how they articulate these really personal struggles and what those expressions might tell us about like the broader human experience,
Yeah.
what we all go through.
Yeah, the shared human experience for sure.
Okay, so where do we even start? I mean, one of the first things that jumped out at us was just the sheer directness of how Carnage 1nOnly puts these negative emotions out there. There's no filter, really.
Yeah, there's a real lack of varnish, isn't there?
Yeah.
You see it right away in the lyrics from AMC War 2, that line, feel the worst one at my best, because I don't like what's next to come. Fear they come before the storm, like the pain before the numb. It's not just saying, oh, I feel bad, right? It's this whole cycle of anxiety, a feeling of dread, even when, on the surface, things might seem okay.
Right, like you can't even enjoy the good moments because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. And then you get something as bare, as straightforward as that line from Carnage been there. This mind state is unfair. It's like almost primal.
It is. It's like a scream.
Yeah, a scream of frustration. And what's really powerful about this directness for you listening is that like it's mirroring those unedited thoughts we all have, right? The ones we try to maybe push down or clean up.
Right. Make them sound better.
Make them presentable. And it's like with Carnage 1nOnly, you're seeing those raw emotions laid bare. And I think that can be really validating.
Oh, I think so too. Like it makes you feel less alone, less crazy for having those same thoughts.
Yeah.
And then building on that, there's a lot of exploration around mental health struggles. It's not just passing sadness, This feels very, very central to a lot of the work that you share.
Yeah, it's woven throughout. And what's insightful here is that it's portrayed in all these different ways.
Yeah.
So you have like almost like a clinical observation in AMC War 2, that line, equilibrium chemically imbalanced. It's like hinting at a biological understanding of mental health, right?
Right.
Like,
There's something physical happening.
yeah. And then you get these more poetic lines, a little unsettling, like, mind getting wider, is that wisdom, or am I withered forever? From Carnage Antibody Free Verse. And that makes you stop and think, right, about the effects of mental and emotional strain over time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the very direct, almost empathetic approach you see in mental health freestyle, where it's like, Who cares about mental health if it ain't about yours? It's about mine. But if it is yours, I'll give you the time. I understand.
I love that line.
It's incredible. It's like, it acknowledges that sometimes when we're struggling, we can be pretty self-absorbed, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it immediately turns around and offers support. And I think that's what's so powerful about it.
It is. It's that recognition that we all go through it.
Yeah.
And, speaking of things we all go through, your sources also show this very real sense of loss and grief, which is something we all deal with at some point.
Yeah, and you see this really powerfully in that same track, Mental Health Freestyle. Those lines hit hard.
Oh.
2 months ago, I put my homie in the ground. Man, make me wondering if I should quit my job now. I had to carry him to his grave now. Where do we go, mi amigo?
Yeah.
That's raw grief, You really feel that sense of disorientation, of trying to figure out how to move forward when something so significant has been lost.
You can feel that it's recent, too,
It's very immediate. And for you listening, if you've experienced that kind of loss, this kind of honesty, it can really resonate. It's that reminder that grief, it's a huge thing. It can really throw you off balance.
You can, yeah.
And sometimes just hearing somebody else put that into words, it can be strangely comforting.
Yeah, it is. It makes you feel less alone in it. And it's
Yeah.
not just about those big external losses, right?
Right.
There's also this willingness in Carnage 1nOnly's work to look inward at personal flaws, at mistakes, and that takes a different kind of courage, I think.
It does. And what's notable is that there's not this defensiveness you often see. In God's children, those lyrics always felt like my intentions were afflicted by my intestines. Yeah, something deep in depression, had no respect for myself. That's looking in the mirror really unflinchingly.
Yeah, and not just acknowledging the mistake, but like tying it back to something deeper, a lack of self-respect.
Right. And that's important, right?
Right.
Because for you listening, thinking about your own journey, that willingness to own those struggles, that's huge. That suggests that real self-awareness, even when it's painful, that's part of growth.
It is. It's like you have to see it to be able to change it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then moving outward a bit, we also see Carnage 1nOnly taking on these broader societal issues. And there's a pretty strong disillusionment with materialism that comes through.
Yeah, this really jumped out at us.
It's the Food for Thought excerpt is really explicit about this. You have lines like, "Don't understand why money is the only thing that I spend, but my friends are what I have to live without."
Yeah.
And then that really pointed connection made in no fucking bank account got no mental health.
Yeah.
And it really highlights this dissatisfaction with the way we prioritize things, right?
Like what we're told is important.
It's questioning this system that values money over genuine connection, over mental well-being. I think for a lot of people listening, that might tap into something, right?
It does, yeah.
That unease with what we're all kind of, told to strive for. It's like Carnage 1nOnly is giving voice to this broader skepticism about what society values.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge to the way things are.
Yeah.
And then there's something else that really struck us. The way that the act of creating itself, the music, the spoken word, it seems to be such a vital outlet for Carnage 1nOnly to process all of this.
It's essential, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about sharing it with an audience, but it seems like the creation itself is almost therapeutic.
Yeah.
And that's so clearly stated in Carnage Been There. That line, "I'm not good at talking, so I guess that's what I'm writing for." That really stuck with me.
Me too.
It suggests that, when words fail, when you can't articulate it, that creating, whether it's music or writing or whatever your medium is, that can be a way to make sense of the chaos inside.
Absolutely. And for you listening, if you've ever turned to a creative outlet during a tough time, you get that. It's like the process of creating can be just as important as the finished product.
Absolutely. It's almost like art as therapy,
Right.
Not just expression, but a way to understand, to order your thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important point. And, even though we're dealing with these heavy themes, there's also this sense of connection with the listener and even encouragement. It's not all darkness.
It's not. There are these moments of real gratitude and reaching it. It's like in Carnage Down for You Too, those lyrics, "You've been down for me, I'll be down for you too.
Yeah.
Look at what we've been through, reason for my living, thankful that you did it," every single sentence.
Yeah.
That's a deep appreciation for the people who are listening, who are connecting with the work.
It is, yeah.
And then in Carnage Day, Revised Freestyle, there's that direct address.
Yeah.
And I don't know what brought you here, but I'm grateful you appeared, thankful that you're here.
Yeah.
And it's like it's acknowledging you, the listener.
Right.
It's creating this sense of shared experience. And then you have the encouragement in Carnage been there.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. I've been there. Life's unfair and no one cares. Don't be scared. I've been there. Yes, it's true. I care.
Right. It's like, I see you. I get it.
Yeah, you're not alone. And that's a really important message.
It is, yeah. And it creates this sense of community. Like you're not just passively listening. You're part of something.
Absolutely. It's shared vulnerability in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of vulnerability, your sources also get into these really complex relationships, which, let's be honest, are never simple.
No, they're never simple. And what's interesting here is that, Carnage 1 only goes through this whole spectrum of relationship experiences, right?
Right.
So you see that strain, almost a detachment in AMC War 2, that line, no time for love. Like there's so much else going on internally that there's just no space for it.
Yeah, you can feel that.
And then you have Carnage Explain Myself, which, it hints at this breakdown in communication, that feeling we all know that we speak a different language thing.
Oh, yeah, frustration.
But then you have, as a contrast, that deep gratitude for the connections that do work, that
Yeah.
are supportive, that comes through in Carnage Down for You too.
Right.
And then we also see familial relationships explored, those reflections on teaching his daughter in God's children. And at the same time, there's this feeling of being a lesser father.
Yeah, that's so relatable for so many people, I think.
It is. It's this really layered emotion. And I think what it all points to is this very human struggle to connect, to be understood, to not feel lost in translation. That's something we all deal with in relationships, whether they're romantic, familial, friendships.
It's that longing for connection that I think we all have.
Yeah.
And running through all of this, there's this journey of self-awareness and reflection that we see Carnage 1nOnly going through. It feels like a process.
Oh, absolutely. Growth is a huge theme here. You see it in lines like, stay clever, stay indented, break walls, and keep on building from AMC War 2.
Yeah.
It's like a conscious effort toward bettering yourself, becoming more resilient.
Yeah, it's about pushing forward.
And there's this real honesty about past mistakes, that feeling of being a hypocrite that comes up in God's children,
Right.
which suggests learning, right?
Hmm.
And then that clear desire to find your own way, to not be controlled by fear, by outside pressure, living in no fear, from Carnage Dance with the Devil.
Mm-hmm. And I think, as we've talked about, the act of creating itself, the music, the writing, it seems to be a huge part of that growth process of working through things, moving forward.
It's not just reflecting it, it's actually driving it.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of this, it seems to come back to this core theme that runs through so much of Carnage 1nOnly's work. This inner conflict, the mental health challenges, like this undercurrent that's always there, always present. From those very direct references to, chemical imbalances and the mental hospitals, the internal struggles are just laid out there, and you have entire tracks dedicated to this, right?
Yeah.
Mental health freestyle, Carnage Save Me, and that raw plea in Save Me all, because it can't keep going on like this. That just hits you.
It does.
And then you see the vulnerability in those self-deprecating lines, the worst one at my best, that feeling of not being enough, of being a lesser father. And it's all this tension, right, between these negative experiences and this deep desire for something better. And woven into that, you have these existential questions, feelings of disconnection. Am I more than a person or a soul? And it's all presented, without any sugarcoating. It's a very real look at what's going on inside.
Yeah, it's not shying away from the hard parts of being human.
Not at all.
And, we see this again in Food for Thought, that rejection of what society says we should value, the materialism. It's all tied into those personal struggles.
Absolutely. That excerpt is so powerful. The way conventional ideas of self-esteem are almost dismissed, and that, sharp critique of putting money ahead of real human connection. Don't understand why money is the only thing that I spend, but my friends are what I have to live without. It shows a very different set of values.
Right, like what really matters.
Yeah. It's prioritizing relationships, prioritizing well-being over these superficial markers of success. And that line, see, we all got something that's worth doing this work, our own thoughts, That's a call to action in a way.
Is.
It's reminding you, the listener, to value your own internal world, your own perspective.
Yeah, to look inward for what's important.
Exactly.
And then finally, we have these insights from the pasted text, which seem to offer this perspective on what it means to love and support someone who really struggles with self-worth.
Yeah, and this text, I think, gives us a really valuable way to understand what might be behind some of those expressions we see from Carnage One Only. It emphasizes how important consistent love is, unwavering affection. You know, it's about being honest, about understanding their loyalty even when they might not see it themselves. And it highlights the power of reminding them of their worth, not just through words, but through actions, consistently. And there's this strong message about truth, even when it's hard, being more healing than lies. And
Mhm.
for you, if you know someone who struggles with this, or if you yourself do, these insights are really powerful. It's about the impact of showing up for someone consistently, being that presence that can make a real difference.
It is. It's like being that person who believes in them even when they don't believe in themselves.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Carnage One Only's work, what are like the big takeaways that really stand out for you?
Well, I think for you listening, what should really stick with you is that raw honesty, right?
Hmm.
That vulnerability in portraying pain, mental health struggles, the messy realities of relationships. It's brave to put those things out there, and I think that's what creates this space for connection. When you hear someone else expressing what you might be feeling, you don't feel so alone. And then there's that emphasis on using creativity to cope, to process, to heal. And the way Carnage One only connects with the audience, it all adds this deeper layer of purpose to the work.
Yeah, it's not just music, it's not just words. It feels like something more.
It's human connection.
Hmm.
And I think, considering all of these themes we've talked about, the struggle, the search for meaning, the relationships, and especially that message from pasted text about the power of support, it leaves us with a big question to think about. What if we all created more space for this kind of vulnerable sharing? What if we offered that kind of unwavering support in our own communities, in our own lives? How can we move past the superficial stuff and really be there for each other? Offer that understanding that can, as the text says, melt away doubts and fears. I think that's something worth taking with you from this deep dive.
I think so too. So much to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all of this with us, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the deep dive.